AGL has warned Australia's power grid could crash if coal plants are forced out of the market too early. The nation's biggest coal generator insists it needs to operate for decades to come to ensure a smooth transition to a renewable-based system. Joining me live now is the Minister for Resources, Water and Northern Australia, Keith Pitt. Keith Pitt, good to see you. Now, AGL has warned today their words are a crash landing if coal is forced out too early, but AGL would say that, would they?
Laura, great to be with you from Gladstone, one of those industrial powerhouse cities in Queensland. But I mean, this is pretty obvious. Coal's delivering more than 60% of our electricity network now. If those power stations close early, well, of course it blacks out. I'm not sure what people think will happen. Electricity doesn't appear by magic. It takes planning, it takes years of work to ensure that the network is reliable and affordable, and that's what we want to do.
Yeah, I think everyone's on board with that. They don't want a crash landing for coal, but the question is when? How early would be too early?
Well, let's look at what the states are doing. I mean, Victoria's announcement, even New South Wales. It's just a fantasy. I mean, we've got to ensure we keep the power on. If we want cities like Gladstone, where I'm standing right now, to maintain their viability and profitability, well, they need affordable electricity. They can't have it go on and off. They can't turn themselves off at 4 o'clock in the afternoon if it might rain. Those things just don't work. So it's fundamentally about getting those basics right. We want to ensure that the network is reliable and affordable. That's why we're investing in gas exploration, and of course doing energy deals, as Angus is with the states, to try and make sure they do the right thing.
So you'll step in and prop up these ageing generators?
Well, look, as has been discussed for a long period of time now, there's going to be a real shortfall in New South Wales when Liddell closes. I don't think there's too many private companies out there, Laura, that are looking to undercut their bottom line by building more generation. And if that doesn't happen, well, we have to make sure the lights stay on, and that's what we intend to do. AGL
is also the biggest climate liability here in Australia. We see this report from Greenpeace today. Do you dispute that?
I dispute pretty much anything that comes from Greenpeace. It's just quite incredible.
Or just on principle,
Laura, the reality
is there some kind of fact to back that up?
Well, the reality is straightforward. We have reduced our emissions since 2005 by 19%. That is more than Japan, more than the US, definitely more than New Zealand, and certainly more than Canada. We are actually on track to deliver our commitments. We'll make sure that happens. We've got to be able to demonstrate how these things will be done. It's pretty easy to just throw something into the wind. Statements are easy. Delivery is hard.
Well, yeah, that's right. It is. If net zero is the hope, is the goal, whatever you want to call it, by 2050, how do you see that mix working in the lead up?
Well, this is about getting stuff done and doing stuff that works. And what works, we know, is ensuring that our coal assets stay on into the future. We know that gas can be utilised as a peaker and, of course, a reliable supply. Traditional hydro works. There's always a place for things like solar and wind where it fits into the network in an appropriate way. But I don't think anyone watching your show, Laura, would think that you can have the whole country run on solar panels. And what are you going to do with tens of thousands of acres of these things when they expire in 10 to 20 years?
Yeah.
So I think we need to make sure that that plan is in place, and that's what we intend to do.
I don't think anyone has suggested we run the whole country on solar panels, have they?
Well, I think if you go to Greenpeace or some of the others, they'll suggest that's all you can do. And Laura, I've got to say, I mean, these things are built out of Australian resources as well. That's why we've got that announcement on today for junior explorers. $100 million worth of tax incentives to make sure those pipelines stay in place for future mines and opportunities.
Now, you look at these things really closely. Has any country with a net zero goal for 2050 has said they can do it without nuclear being in the mix?
Well, I'm not sure whether they have or haven't said those things, but what I can say is places like the UK and the US and others do rely on their zero emissions nuclear capacity. I mean, the UK was spruiking the fact they didn't use coal for a particular period of time. Well, it's easy if you've got baseload reliable nuclear energy. And they're also tied into France's nuclear system. So we're an island. We're a long way from anyone else that can provide that support. We have to be self-sufficient. That's what we intend to do.
Not even Bill Gates thinks that any country, indeed the world, can reduce this net zero emissions target without nuclear. And Australia's in the box seat for this, aren't we, given our resources?
Well, we've got big stocks of uranium, which I think we can utilise even more for the benefit of the Australian people. We've included small modular reactors in the technology roadmap. We're looking closely at that technology and the opportunities it might provide for Australia. But we've got to be practical about these things, and we need the opposition to be on board. And at the moment, all Anthony Albanese wants to do is have a bit of a hissy fit about nuclear and throw rocks.
Why do you need the opposition on board? There's plenty of things you do without the opposition, indeed with fierce opposition from them.
Well, these are significant decisions for the Australian people. We want to have a conversation with them, but it's incredibly difficult if all you get from the opposition is political scare campaigns. Well, let's be practical. Let's do what's in the interests of our country and our people, and we should be able to have an adult conversation with the Australian people about what is a difficult issue.
A bit of leadership might help.
Well, we're pushing forward, Laura, I've got to say. You know our position. Our position is we are investigating those options for small modular reactors. What we've seen from the opposition is opposition.
All right, let me give you a bit of a free hit here. What are you doing in Gladstone and what's in the budget for your constituents next week?
Oh, it's always good to have a free hit. Thanks so much. Well, I'm in Gladstone. I'm here with Ken O'Dowd, the member for Flynn. We're heading up to Beef Week. But it's $100 million for the junior explorers as a tax incentive. We know it works. $70 million in the last 3 rounds of tax incentives resulted in $340 million worth of capital. We need that exploration work to activities to occur. We must ensure that the pipeline of projects continues so there's not a hole in the future. And right now, the resources sector is holding our economy together. $296 billion is the forecast, an Australian record. That's just quite incredible given there's a worldwide pandemic.
Okay, it is, and we will wait for those details next Tuesday. Thanks so much. Live from Gladstone there. It's going to be a very chilly Canberra next week. Bit of change of scenery for you.
I'm not looking forward to the cold, but I'm looking forward to the budget.